Hello and welcome to the latest edition of the Sales Circle, where we intend to bring you plenty of hints, tips, advice and tricks on everything to do with sales, marketing and business growth. And this week, I'm thrilled to introduce to you, he's going to kill me for saying this, but the legend in my eyes, that is Barrie Pierpoint. Barrie, great to see you.
Good morning, Rob. Pleased to meet you.
Thanks for coming on to the show. Good journey. I know you've travelled a long way to come here today.
My pleasure.
Good 90 miles, I think, wasn't it? Give or take. No one's counting. But Barrie, thank you for joining us. So I think before we go on, give us a bit of a synopsis of you and your illustrious career. Take us right from those dreams of being a bus driver. I've done my research, haven't I? I've done my research. All the way to what you're doing now. Give us a bit of an overview.
Well, the dreams about being a bus driver, when I was a kid, that we used to watch the buses where I lived in Clifton Estate in Nottingham, going up and down with numbers 68 and 61 or whatever. And we used to play buses on our bikes. Oh. That's where that came from. But I wanted to be a bus driver because I had two uncles who drove buses as well, believe it or not. Oh. But that soon died out as I got older and began to realise there was more to life than driving buses, you know.
Absolutely.
But I think really that I came into sort of a family that were very sort of, what's the word? They were very sort of progressive. And my mother and father were keen to work at a local co-op and in a local dye house, dyeing fabric. Mm. And I thought to myself, I didn't really want to do that. Yeah. I want to do something different. And I think at a younger age, I took on a petrol station in Nottingham as a sort of self-employed arrangement. And then before I knew where I was, within about 2 or 3 years, I had 6 petrol stations. And I brought my brother in there, and we ran these 6 petrol stations in Nottingham. And that gave me an appetite for business. Mm-hmm. And it also gave me an appetite for being creative. And we could do our own promotions, and we got chance to do other things as well. On the site, and I enjoyed meeting customers, and I enjoyed the fact that in those days petrol was, very, very cheap in those days, not like it is today. Yeah. And so that's really where I sort of got a taste for business. And then I went to work for the Chamber of Commerce in Nottingham, which is even better because I met lots of business people, chairman, chief executive, managing directors, and I was only in my 20s. Wow. And I learned a lot from going to visit them. I sold memberships to the Chamber. I sold advertising in the Chamber magazine, business magazine. But the good thing about working there was you had contact with senior people at a very young age, where they bring you into their office and sit and talk to you, and they give you lots of sort of ideas and tips and information. And that's where I really got a feel for I've had to do my own thing. Mm-hmm. And so from the Chamber of Commerce, I went into a consultancy in Bath, which is to do with the motor industry, and I did some work there as a general manager. Then I became the managing director at a very young age. I also worked in newspapers and magazines and publishing at a young age as well. And then eventually I got to Leicester City Football Club, which was incredible really, because there were about 250 odd applicants for this job for a marketing director. And it's the first time the club had ever had a marketing director. They had a commercial manager and a lottery manager and a catering manager. But I was very keen to get back from Somerset back into the Midlands, where I came from in Nottingham. So I applied for this job, and I was lucky. I got it after all the messing about. But in those days, and you'll probably tell me this as well, that I was very colour coordinated, because I had coloured glasses, coloured tie, coloured shirt, coloured socks, coloured underpants, and everything was coordinated.
Well, maybe we need to put some photos on the screen now, because you became quite well known, not just for the underpants, but for the glasses as well. They became your trademark, didn't they?
I did. I had 13 pairs of coloured glasses. Wow. From yellow, black, blue, green, pink, orange, multicoloured. That was my thing. People recognised me, because of my coloured glasses, and it really got me in life, really. So people sort of, I know him, and because I'm 6'6" at the time, I got shrunk to his head, but people saw me coming miles off, and they recognised me, and that was really sort of my my sort of marketing ploy, really.
I like that. So all early on in the days, there's a big term of having your personal brand, isn't there? I think back then those glasses became, obviously there was more to your career than just the glasses you wore, I'm sure, but they were your personal brand. Now the dying question that I think a lot of the viewers are going to want to know is, did the glasses always match the underpants? That's what we need to know.
Everything was coordinated. The socks, the underpants, the tie, the shirt, and anything else I got that's got to be worn, all were the same colour.
Perfect. There we go. We could probably end the vlog there. That's all. That's all we need. All these notes we can just chuck away. That's all we needed to know. So you ended up with Leicester City for around 10 years.
Nearly 10 years. Yes.
Now I'll come back to Leicester City, and then you kind of stayed in football for a while after your time with Leicester.
I did. I went from there to Portsmouth, and then from there to Bradford, and then I bought an advertising, marketing, PR agency in Leicester, and then from there I had the consultancy. Then I went to work at Boston Football Club for a bit, and tried to buy the football club on behalf of a group of investors, and then I ended up living out that way.
Fantastic. So I'm scribbling some notes of questions I want to dive deep into, because obviously, as everyone can see, I'm a massive Leicester City fan. You've got various memorabilia there. Who put that there? Look at that. Look at that, as if by magic. But yeah, I'm a massive Leicester City fan, and I love, I was brought up around football at the time when you were there. So I've got some key questions there. But you brought up some great points, and just in that introduction about your time with, I think it was the Nottinghamshire Chamber of Commerce. So you would have been quite a younger gentleman, around 25, 26, I'd guess, give or take. And you said yourself, dealing with these sort of CEOs, managing directors, these higher people. How did you find those kind of interactions as a younger person?
Well, this is going back quite some time. Bear in mind, it's probably a long time ago. Well, it was a long time ago. And I felt that because I was working for the Chamber of Commerce in Nottingham, the Chamber of Commerce had a certain, like a CBI, had a certain type of sort of, let you entrance into a business, because people respected the Chamber of Commerce for what it stood for, which is looking after people's business interests. So people were willing to see me to find out why I wanted to talk to them, and mainly it was to do with getting them to become a member or selling advertising in the magazine, the business magazine. But then you talk about other issues, and then I'd say to them, well, if you join the Chamber, those issues that you've got, we can help you with.
Yeah.
So I found people very open and very welcoming, which made me feel great at that age. I mean, I was only a youngster. And, I got then contacts I could talk to, and I could relate to. And you get on with people. And some people, initially, when you first meet them, as you know yourself, put on a very sort of defensive and a very sort of wall of, you don't come too close to me. And then all of a sudden, when you get to know them, that breaks down. And I found a lot of people were a little bit sort of wary and also a bit sort of, on guard. And as soon as the guard came down, we got down to nitty-gritties, and we became quite great friends with quite a lot of people. So that to me was the starting point where I could see how I could get into business and what I'd learned from those people that I dealt with.
Fantastic. And Winsy, I love that, because it's the part of business that I think maybe sort of the younger people or people getting into business forget about, the need for relationships, developing those relationships. We see on TV these really hard facing scenarios of, boardroom handshakes, this fight, as it were, to negotiate things. And business is rarely, it does happen, but it's rarely like that. Actually, you see the best parts of business being done through more friendships than business acquaintances, I think, which is crucial. And I assume then that kind of learning journey in that little black book, I guess we could call it, helped you in your then consulting career down in Bath?
Yes. I went to work for a company in Bath who did motor industry training and consultancy work, and they did a lot of work with dealerships, that type of thing. And I was down there for about 4 or 5 years. But I didn't miss the Midlands, where I came from. And, Somerset's a different area to Nottingham and Leicester and Derby. But, I could take all those skill sets with me. I was the general manager for a year or two, then I became the MD. So that was quite interesting. But I did miss the Midlands. I used to come home most weekends to Nottingham anyway to see my family,
Yeah, which is always nice. I'm a Midlands boy myself. It's nice to see that there's some people that still talk proudly about
East Midlands as well.
Yeah, exactly, about the Midlands. Nottinghamshire, I'm not too sure about, but the East Midlands, absolutely. So then, look, that does, I guess, take us on to the time with Leicester City. Now, you know, I've read your book, Minding My Own Football Business, and of course, to anyone watching this, I recommend Barry's book. Barry, where can we get your book?
Well, the company that produced the book they're called Morgan Lawrence, and we have a website. I'm one of the directors. There's two of us. There's Matthew Mann and myself who own the business, and we started my book in the COVID.
Right.
I mean, I don't forget, I've been at Leicester for 10 years, and Matthew contacted me and said, I got a story to tell. And I knew I had, but I never got time to write anything. And he said, no, I'll write the story for you. And we did the book together, and it took a year. A year of constant chatting over Zooms and Teams and phone calls and meetings. And he wrote the whole story of my time there. But I didn't want it just to be about me. I want, you know, that by reading it, I wanted it to be other people in there, because there was more than me in that football club in those 10 years.
Yeah.
There was players, there was managers, there was staff, there was customers, there was journalists, and all sorts of people. So you'll find about 40 people in that book talking about different things about the time at Leicester. And that, you know, to me, it's not about one person, it's about the club and what the club achieved in those 9 or 10 years I was there.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want it to be controversial, because people often talk about me being controversial with a manager. I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be all the positivity, the achievements, and the successes. And we did do a lot of things that a lot of people weren't doing. We're very innovative in those days.
Yeah.
And people came to see us to see what we were doing and why they could copy us.
Absolutely. And I think on the book itself, I do thoroughly recommend the book. And even for those that aren't a Leicester City fan, for those that aren't even a football fan, you know, I think that there's lots of business lessons in there that are crucial to anyone that's watching this, setting up a business, own a business, you know, looking after sales. There's some great lessons. And what I loved about the reasons why you sort of brought together all these collaborators and people into the book is because I know that, because I've read the book and I've sort of spoken to you before, that at the time of sort of your signing, the time of you joining, there was a sort of, dare I say, a disconnection between Leicester City and the supporters and their fans. And when I look back, although, you know, if I'm honest, I was very young at the time, it was my first introduction to...
Loyal.
Thank you very much. Let's just freeze frame that, and we'll record that as a little snippet. But you helped bring that together. You helped bring the fans and the supporters back to the club. I
think the thing was, when I went there, and bear in mind, those who read the book will find it quite interesting, because they gave me an office the size of a toilet, and there's no windows in there. There's only one light bulb from the ceiling that sat there. There was a dead plant in the corner, and even the table that I got was a small table with bricks underneath it to hold it up. So it was that bad. But I didn't let that put me off, because, you know, if you did that today, people would just walk away, wouldn't they? And think, well, I'm not going to stop here. So I knew I had a big job on. The job I had to do was to increase the business sales, was to get into the community, was to actually join up with people and create partnerships. We had no real connection with the local authorities or the schools or whatever. And my job was to do all that, grow the business, develop it, and build a new stand.
That's right, yeah, which soon became the carling stand. It was the main stand, wasn't it? So I was doing some research into this, and I'm just looking down at my notes now. So your target at the time was to raise £5.5 million, which is an incredible amount of money, and back then would have been a lot more. Can I ask you, when you were given that as a target, someone came up to you and said, look, Barry, we need £5.5 million. How did you feel?
Well, the good thing was that the football club had put down some thoughts and ideas where some of the money could come from. And then I added my thoughts to where the money should come from. And then together, that hopefully gave us more or less 3/4 of the amount of money. And then we had to borrow the rest towards the end. But I was pleased I went there when I did, because when they were planning to build that stand, we had 4 big rooms, and they had concrete walls down all the 4 rooms. And I said to them, if you're going to do that, you're limiting the capacity you can do if you didn't open it up to one big room.
Yeah.
And they never thought of that, and not even the architect. So I was pleased I went there, because what we ended up with is a room that held 700 or 800 people, or you could divide it into 3 or 4 different rooms with the dividers, soundproof dividers. And that then gave us a lot of opportunity to raise more money. But the £5.5 million didn't frighten me, because, you know, I knew that it was going to be a challenge. I knew that I got some building blocks to work with. But when I went to Leicester City, it was really down at the time, and people were said to me, "What do you come and work in Leicester City for? You know, blah, 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 blah. You shouldn't be. Forget about it. Go home. Go and do something else." You know, and I didn't let that put me off, because I'm not one of those people who gets put off. I know that with my own intentions and with my own strength and my own vision and my own creativity, I can actually see the long-term aim and goal.
Yeah.
And then I put a plan together of how I'm going to achieve that, which I did.
Which I love. You know, we're all faced with these challenges. We're all faced with this, I'll use the word adversity, and it's very easy to either run away from, it's that fight or flight kind of situation. We can walk away, run away, or sit down, methodically write out a plan. And I remember, you know, from your book, you know, with this $5.5 million, you literally describe how you'd sat down and wrote, you know, literally wrote, right, this is what I'm going to do. This is my targets. I'm going to speak to them. And I was looking into it as well. I think if memory serves me right from my notes, Leicester City at the time was sort of turning over around £2 million per year, and by the time he left, turning over £24 million per year, which is, I'm not going to work out the percentages of that because I'm a great salesperson, rubbish mathematician, but that's a massive increase. So, you know, fair kudos to yourself. But the way I sort of describe you, and I could be wrong, but the way I kind of describe you is you helped the commercial side, not just to Leicester City, but I think a lot of clubs. I know that Karen Brady, or do we call her Lady Dan? Well, Karen Brady, yes. I don't know what we should say anymore.
Well, Dame, call her Karen Brady.
Karen Brady. Karen Brady came to understand a little bit more, and you know, I think Manchester City.
Manchester United, Manchester.
Yes, it came to you for help and advice. So that must have been quite a proud moment, a proud achievement to.
Well, when I first joined the club, I actually visited 1 or 2 clubs to find out a bit about the football business, because I've not been in football before. I've been a referee in my younger days.
Didn't know that?
Oh, I did, yes. I was a referee in my younger days. But I didn't follow football greatly, because I'm a Nottingham Forest in Notts County lad. I was born in Nottingham. And then I came out of football when all the hooliganism got really bad. And I thought, no, I'm not going to bother anymore. But anyway, it was nice to know that those people wanted to know what we were doing and how we were doing so well. But in the early days, I went to Manchester United, and I sat in their reception waiting to talk to the commercial director for a meeting to chat about ideas and, you know, networking and all that sort of thing, you know. And they kept me waiting for an hour. And I thought, well, you know, are they going to see me or not? And then the girl said, well, who are you? I said, oh, I'm Barrie Pierpoint from Leicester City. I'm the marketing director. He said, oh, our commercial director's busy now. He's run over time. You'll have to leave it. And they didn't see me. And, you know, and she said, where are you from? I said, Leicester. She said, where's that? You know, and that was what I got. And I thought to myself, wow, that's incredible. You know, I know where Manchester is from the, you know, and we know where Leicester is. It's in the centre of the UK.
Yeah.
And that reception to me said, those clubs are too big and couldn't really be bothered. So I thought, blow it. I won't bother with them. I'll just go and do my own thing. And we did our own thing. And as you know, we created lots of new opportunities in that club. We created a lot of brands.
Yes.
I was big in brands in those days. And, you know, we had Fox Leisure. We decided to do our own leisure wear, because we had a company called Bukta at the time, who were doing all our shirts and our leisure wear. And they were full to bits. All the arms used to fall off, and then they'd sell some of the stuff to some of the local market traders, and then people would buy them from the market, and then they'd fall to bits and bring them back to the shop and ask them for a refund. So I fired them, and then I decided to do my own thing, and that's how Fox Leisure came about, with the involvement of Riley, the manager, and the players. And we had a local supplier, and we decided to do our own thing, and we made a lot more money than what Bukta gave us.
Yeah.
Because we weren't big enough for the Adidases of this world and Nikes and all that. Leicester wasn't a sex club then, was it, Rob?
Not at all. But I remember Fox Leisure as from my recollection, from my memory, it came out of nowhere.
It did.
Came out of nowhere, and before long, if everyone at school was wearing some kind of Fox Leisure, and no different to kids now. If they see you wearing something with Nike, someone goes, "Oh, I want to wear that," or they've got the latest Adidas tracksuit. That's what Fox Leisure was. You turn up to school in a Fox Leisure t-shirt, feeling dead proud. Your chest is puffed out, and all the shops were appearing in town. I think there was 2 or 3 in town, I think.
Yeah.
So it became a massive, massive thing for Leicester, I think.
Well, the thing was that I was, in my early days, again, as a marketing director, I was very disappointed to see kids walking around in Manchester United shirts and Chelsea shirts and Liverpool shirts, everything but Leicester shirts. And I said, we need to have our own brand. I mean, now I've always been big in Marks and Spencer's in the younger days, because I thought Marks and Spencer stood for quality, value. It stood for, for great service.
Yeah.
And I said that Fox Leisure has to be a quality brand, great service, affordable, and value for money.
Yeah.
And that's what we worked on that basis. And with the Fox Leisure went from, I tell you what, the club shop when I first went there was selling vulgar knickers with vulgar comments on the bottom of the thing, if the women used to buy. But nobody bought them anyway, because there were loads of them there, so we chucked them all away. And there was all sort of tat stuff. And I said, right, this has got to go. We're not having stuff that nobody wants to buy, because anybody can do that. So we created the Fox Leisure Retail Forum, where we invited lots of the fans to come on a regular basis. And if we said to them, to these fans in this forum, would you buy a mug with Leicester City logo on it? And it's going to cost you £1.50 or £2. If 60% of the people said yes, we'd stock it. If they said no, we wouldn't. And that's what we did. So that then people said, well, why have you got that thing there? It's because the fan forum, and there was about 20, 30 people on this fan forum, kids from 5 to grandmas of 85.
Yeah.
So we had a very cross-section of people. And if they was going to buy something, we'd stock it.
Yeah.
If they said no, we wouldn't. And I get people saying to me, well, can you do wallpaper? I said, well, the fans forum said they don't want to bother with the wallpaper. They're not going to put wallpaper all up and down the house.
Yeah.
So we didn't stock it. And that was my reasoning why things weren't stocked. So we got the okay from the fans forum, and therefore we stocked it.
I love that. So you've gone straight to the fans, and it goes back to what we said earlier on today. You really bridged the gap between the club, the supporters, and turned it into a real community feel. And that, that then I think came into play. I think it was a little bit later than Fox Leisure, the family
Football.
Family football nights, the FNF night.
Well, that strangely was not my idea, which is, Richard Hughes, one of my colleagues who worked with me, and it came in the early days when I started. He used to go and watch Sheffield Steelers, the ice hockey.
Yeah.
And he saw all the razzmatazz, he saw all the families, and we stood, don't forget, I came in the April, I think he came in this sort of August time or May time, whatever it was. We stood on a cold, damp October's night watching a reserve team game. Now, in those days at Filbert Street, you'd have about 4 people in that corner, 3 in that corner, 2 in that corner, and 2 in that corner, about 20 people. And these 22 guys were on a pitch playing football without any atmosphere.
Yeah.
Nobody was shouting on or giving them the support and encouragement. And there was nothing there. It was about being in the morgue, to be honest. And Richard said, we ought to do something. We ought to have a Friday night football where we invite all the kids down and the mums and dads and bring people into the game at an early age.
Yeah.
Like when you was a little, with your short pants on. And it was a little kid, and we did. And we put this concept to Brian Little and said, look, Brian, would you be happy with this? Because we didn't do anything unless we had consultation. My view is that if you consult with people and involve them and get them on board, do it. Just doing it without consultation is wrong. You'll get people's backs up. So we did it with that. And as well as I do, we launched that and it was very successful. The kids came in for £1. I think the mum and dads came in for a little bit more, I think.
Yeah.
And then mum used to do her knitting while the game was on. Dan was looking at all the rah-rah girls with the pom-poms and watching the...
So was I.
Yeah. Watching the youngsters. And then the kids were really brought into the game of football, and it was in a very controlled, safe, enjoyable environment.
Yeah.
As you know, because some families were always concerned about taking people to football matches with young kids with this bad language.
Yeah.
There was all this rioting or hooliganism, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So that was successful. And we started off with 1 or 2,000, got up to 4 or 5. But the real big thing for us was when we had Manchester United reserves come to this game,
Right.
playing Leicester, one on Monday night, because it was on a Monday night. We didn't cope, and we didn't know the volume of people going to turn up, because Manchester United put 1 or 2 their first team into the game, and of course it went on the news and on the radio, and we had, I think it was about, if I remember rightly, was it about 16,000 people came, and we only had 2 sides over, so we had to open all 4 sides because the ground only held 19,000 at the time. And I was really worried because we had to late kick off because people couldn't get in. We didn't want to disappoint people. And then on the Saturday, we had a first team game, and we had 12,000 people. So it just goes to show how popular that was.
Yeah.
And it was another 12 or 14 training days for us, and the shops were open, so we sold merchandise. Kids bought things from the kiosks, drinks, eats, and it really took off. And then people came to see us about how it all worked. And Richard, and I've got to thank him for that, he said, I'm going to set some training programs up, and any football club wants to come and see the model, how it works.
Yeah.
He trained them all on how everything happened.
Wow.
And we did a lot of that. And, that's how it went.
Yeah, I used to love the family, these nights. I remember one in particular. It was against, I think we were playing Liverpool, and it became very popular because there was rumours that Robbie Fowler was going to play. I think Robbie Fowler was returning from injury or something. Obviously, Robbie Fowler, very big back in the day. I think it was just on the England scene. So it became a very, a great evening. But for me, my family, we weren't brought up with a lot of disposable income, so going to the games was always tough. Now, we lived in Ayleston, so we were only down the road from the stadium itself. But I've got great fond memories of going to these evenings because yes, there was the football and yes, there was stuff going on, but it was a nice introduction to it. I still remember getting home and my mum serving me a bowl of tomato soup to warm me up. We must have gone on a cold night or whatever it was. But I think from a commercial side, you've shown that if you open the doors and do it well, people will come, and that's then going to, like say, help sell the food, the merchandise, create fans, those that are on the fence of, oh, do we go, do we not go, to then go, catch the bug and go again at a more cost conscious point. But I think for the footballers as well, it must have been great. I remember the story in your book about Sam McMahon. He came through the development squad, and although, yes, there's always, it's under 23s now, but there's always some sort of development games going on. But there's a difference between playing the game, playing football, and playing football with the crowd, with the chanting, with the cheering, with the noise that's going on. It must have sort of done a lot for the back end of the club as well.
Well, the reserve team games are about youngsters coming through. It's about people injured getting back into the first team. It was about, trialing people. There's all sorts of things happening in those reserve team games. And when we had all these crowds of 4 and 5 and 15,000 people, it really spurred the players on. All of a sudden there was atmosphere. There was an audience out there. They got something to play for.
Absolutely.
I'm not being funny. If you're in a stadium with nobody there, and you're playing against other 11 players, well, where's the encouragement?
Absolutely.
Where's the support? Where's the noise? Where's the atmosphere? Where is the the thrills and spills of it all? And that's what we created.
Yeah, which is great, I think, for everyone involved. So there's a lot we could probably talk about within Leicester City, and perhaps I don't need to know sort of an exact example, but obviously at the time, you mentioned it earlier about consulting. You would have had to make some decisions and sort of go to some decisions, and you've had to kind of present those to the board of directors. And I'm sure there's people watching this that at times may have to try and sell an idea to managing directors, boards, and that kind of thing. How did you find that interaction with the board? Did you ever have any sort of tough discussions? How did you handle that kind of?
Many tough discussions. I mean, I was a director of marketing for 2 years, and I was CEO from thereafter. and the first CEO of the football club. And, you've got the whole stadium in the world on your shoulders and the whole business on your shoulders, because the directors weren't full-time like I was. They were non-exec directors, and they came to board meetings, they came to games, and they stuck their fingers in things and fiddled with things, then walked away and left a mess, that type of thing, which
happens a lot.
Yes, happens a lot, and some do. I think the thing is that when you have a major project or a major expenditure or a major plan, is to get your facts and figures right, and to research everything properly and thoroughly, and present it in a very easy to understand way. I've seen people come to board meetings when I've been there with a book of 30 pages, and they say to the board, well, this is my plan, and they aren't going to read 30 pages. What they want is headlines.
Yeah.
They want to know this, and this. But most of all, how is all that going to be achieved? Where's the bit behind all that?
Yeah.
So, you can have your 30-page plan, but you want the headlines and the timelines and what's going to happen at each point and what you're going to achieve. And that's what they want. And I think if people prepare, plan, research, and you've got to really research everything thoroughly and get your facts right and get your figures and your numbers right if you're going to spend money. Then go into a meeting or a board meeting and present it with confidence, but also think about all the questions you're going to get asked, and think about what people might ask you, and then think about what answers you're going to give them.
Yeah.
So every time somebody gave you a question, the answer was already in your head. And that's what I used to do. I used to think about all the possibilities. And I used to say to some of my management team, tell me what questions you'd ask me if you were a director of the football club.
I like that. Yeah.
And they say, this, and this. I say, right, let me put that down. And what answer would you give? Because I use other people's brains and not just my own. And I'd see what they say. And so I went in there to all those meetings. I mean, we were spending a lot of money at the time when I was there. Well, new stand, buying new equipment, modernising the stadium. I'd get involved in buying players, but that's probably a good thing. And then, all the things I was doing was going to generate more revenue. But you've got to invest.
Yeah.
It's invest to grow.
Absolutely.
And everything I did, I invest to grow. And I can remember when I opened up the Fox Leisure store it was then Lewis's, the old Lewis's in Leicester, as it was then. It's not there now. And I went to, and it's in the book, and then you read it, I went to Martin Joyce, the chairman, and said, look, I'd like to open this store. And then, I think we can do that, And people, they weren't very... I found sometimes the directors weren't very adventurous like me. I mean, I did a lot of things where I knew I could achieve something, and I was a bit naughty and risk-taking, but I also did all my research and got everything, lined up, all my ducks in a row, as they say. And he didn't want to do it, and I thought, I'm going to do it. And I just did it. And I opened up in Leicester. I got a friend of mine who's a box holder to do all the shop fitting.
Yeah.
We didn't have to pay him any money. We had to pay him a percentage of the take. And the first week we opened up in there, we took 10 grand.
Wow.
And that was going into the 90s. And then I went back to the chairman later on and said, is that a shop you didn't want me to have? He said, yeah. I said, well, I've opened it. He said, they go off, these chairmen. And I said, well, he took 10 grand. He said, did it? I said, yes. Now come roll, look at it. And he went and saw it. He said, brilliant. I mean, sometimes, you shouldn't do that because that's being a bit naughty.
I've always follow the advice.
Yeah. But as a CEO, you have got a certain amount of allegiance. What's the word? You've got a certain amount of authority. I had an authority over how much I could spend on my own without going to a board. But this cost nothing to put together, and that's why I couldn't understand why there was being reluctant to do it. But that used to take a lot of money.
But I think those circumstances, I think for me, you've hit the nail on the head. It does become a miniature sales conversation. It's no different to when we're trying to sell something. In those kind of board situations, whatever it is, we're trying to sell an idea. And if we simplify things, do our research, think about the questions that are going to be asked. And that actually reminds me of a story you told me about last time we discussed, we met. I believe it was a printer salesman, I believe.
Yeah.
Share that story. So a printer salesman's come out to see you, is that right? Well,
we were looking for a photocopier.
Photograph. Yeah.
And I used to see, I mean, I had to be careful with my time because you're going to manage your time very well. I used to see people on a Wednesday afternoon and probably on Friday afternoon, something like that. And the rest of the time, I got other things to do. And this guy came to talk about this photocopier. And he sat on the other side of the table. And he one of these youngsters who got full of energy. And he told me all about the company and how wonderful it was and all the wonderful equipment it got. And it'll make the tea and it'll do this, it'll bubble and pop, pop, start crackle and pop. And anyway, after all the presentation, I let him ramble on for about 10 minutes, quarter of an hour, and listened to all this. And I said, right, okay. I said, what do you know about us? We're a football club. Yeah, what else? Well, you're a football club. I said, well, we're more than that. He said, are you? I said, yes, we are. We're more than a football club. Anything else you can tell me about this club? Leicester City? I said, well, I know that. I said, well, we are. And he couldn't. And I said, did you do any research about who we are and what we are? I said, not really, because you're a football club. And that was disappointing to me. And so I said to him, look, go away, have a think about who we are, find out what we really want and what we need, and come back and talk to me again. We never did.
No, shame.
And that's because somebody just took the assumption, and I think assumptions are dangerous at times. People just take the assumption that they know you're a football club. But then I told him, I said, sit there, I'm going to tell you what we do. And I say, we do football once or twice a week. We've got a conference and banqueting centre 7 days a week. We've got a retail operation 7 days a week. We've got a community department that does all community activities 7 days a week. We've got a PR department that puts out press releases, and we've got a printing department, we've got publications that put our programme, and I went on and on and on.
Yeah.
I said, I never knew that. I said, well, what if you're on the website and look?
Absolutely. And that, it's such a shame. That kind of practice still happens today, I think. Salespeople, they get very hung up on selling this mug because they want to sell the mug. They've been told they've got to sell the mug. This mug is fantastic. You've got to buy from me.
Let me tell you a little story about when I was not in football, when I had a client of mine in Sleaford. They were an engineering consultancy business. And the guy who owned it rang me up and said, I read all about you. I don't know where he had, but probably in some sort of publication. And he said, I'd like you to come and talk to me. And I went to see him. He said, we're a technical consultancy, and we go into business and we do all the technical stuff to do with engineering. He said, but I've got nobody to sell anything here. I said, I've got no marketing or something. I said, all right then, okay. So what do you want me to do? He said, I'd like you to come in and look at us as who we are, what we do, find out where you think you can add value and make a difference, and give me some suggestions about what we should implement. I said, let me first of all talk to all these technical bods you've got. And I had all these technical bods come in, and none of them sold anything. They're all technical wizards.
Yeah.
So I asked them all to stand in front of me and just talk about the business and what they thought the business was. And, they all told me a different story. There was no uniformity. So if one guy had gone and seen somebody, he'd have said one thing and somebody something. So first of all, I learned there's no uniformity. They had no idea about the business at all. They clearly had no idea about the marketing of the business, and they clearly have got no idea how to sell the business. So I said to the owner, I said, look, I've had 10 young people come in here, because I've got 10. I said, they all told me a different story. I said, quite frankly, you could be 10 different businesses for all I know. I said, I'm going to put them all on the same level. Yeah. They're all going to tell the same story.
Yeah.
They're all going to be able to talk to clients about more business, and they're all going to be understand about marketing. And he said, you can now work for me 2 days a week as a consultant, and your job is to turn all that around. And what I did was took his business, not just myself, but while working with the people, from a 2 million business to about 4 or 5 in a very short space of time, because his technical people were going into a business, doing the technical work, and then not saying to the clients, have you got any more work coming up, any more projects, any more engineering things you want us to help you with? Never asked that question. So all the people went in and asked the question and got the work.
Yeah.
So I then got all these people, coached them all, encourage them all. And we're not salesmen, Barry. I said, no, you don't have to be a salesman. I said, you just have to be polite. You've got to talk to people, and you just got to explain what you offer. Don't sell anything, because if you sell something people don't always like to be sold to, they'll buy from you. But if you're asking a question, that's nothing wrong with that, and you'll gather information. And so these people, I trained them all, coached them all. I even made them do another presentation to me later down the line, so that actually they were all saying the same thing. I made sure they did.
Yeah.
And off they went, and that business grew from 2 million to 4 million within about 12, 14 months, 15 months. It went very quickly, because all of a sudden those technical people were then had a commercial mind.
Yeah.
And we're asking the question and bringing the work back with them.
Absolutely. And it comes back to that old adage, I think, that because people hear the word sales and they get very scared of it. But I think if you're developing relationships, asking the right questions and looking for those opportunities, sales happen.
I know, but I prefer to use the word business development, because I think that word is a word that is all about growing your business and growing other people's business.
Yes.
I mean, I know you've got sales in your title, but don't get me wrong. I like the word business development, because it covers a multitude of things, and people are sometimes put off by the word sales. I mean, if I go into a shop and someone jumps on me, wants to vlog me something, I don't like that.
No.
I like to be able to go up to someone and ask for something. But you walk into some shops and down your back before knowing.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got my coat off.
Yeah.
So no, I mean, I've always said, and I said to these 10 chaps, and I showed them how to put a presentation together, because none of them had any material at all. And I always said to them, when you do a presentation, always talk about them first, the client, the customer, whatever terminology you're going to use, and then that draws them in.
Yeah.
And that gets them involved, and then they start talking, because you can sometimes go and see people, as you know, and they don't have a lot to say.
Yes, that's right. Yeah.
And they're hard work.
They're very hard work. Yeah.
You know, some people are very shy, some people don't want to talk. But if you talk about them and their business and make them feel comfortable, and you've got an interest in them, that's how to do it. And that's what I used to do. And then you can start talking about what you have to offer and how it slots into their business to help them grow.
And solve the problems.
Am I thinking your job?
I'm redundant. No, like, well, I'm gone.
You. I mean, this is going back a long time. You're much younger than me. You're obviously, your methods are probably more up to date.
Well, if any of you have a job for me, that'd be great. Maybe you are exactly right. So, obviously, I'd love to sit here and talk about Leicester City all day, but we can't, I'm afraid. No, you've gone on and done fantastic things thereafter, not just within football, but you've had your PR and marketing agency thereafter in Leicester, and now obviously you're still part of BP Business and Management. Throughout all of that time, I have no doubt there's been a time where you've had to make a hard decision, a hard business decision. For anyone watching this that is sort of going through or is facing a tough decision, have you got any sort of advice or any stories that might sort of help those people out, do you think?
I think we all go through tough decisions in life, and I'm just trying to think of something really tough at the moment I can offer you, but let me think about that. But what I know I do, if I've got a tough decision to make, I tend to find I get a piece of paper and I write all the things down for that decision and all the things against that decision. So I make a list of things that I think is going to help me make a decision, or all the things that might not help me make a decision. So actually, I'm looking to see the fors and against, because at the end of the day, a decision, I mean, I know from clients I've had, some can't make decisions. I've had to make decisions for them, to be honest. I've had to drive them down the right track.
Yeah.
To get to their decision, because some people don't like making decisions. Hard decisions are even worse, because you've got a lot of things to think about.
Yeah.
But I think it's all about looking at the facts, looking at the situation, working out what you need to achieve and what you've got to get over to get that decision right. And it's about research, facts, thoroughness. And making sure that it stacks up what decision you're going to come to is going to work for you.
I like that. Taking more of that helicopter approach, which I guess I'm a big believer that I think there's a lot of business decisions that need to be made quickly. So I think sometimes if you don't, you can ruin a business. It's like, I guess deadheading a rose. If you leave the old dead rose on, you're sapping the rest of the nutrients away from the rest of the rose that's good. So if you don't chop that rose off, so to speak, or that deadhead, you're kind of letting things out. But I like the fact that your way of doing it, although it's not necessarily rushed, it's not making a rash decision. You're looking at it quite slowing things down and taking quite an educated role with it. But one thing I love, you know, within the book, and I know your philosophy is all about sort of developing those relationships and with colleagues as well. And I know that you won the Boss of the Year award several years ago, and I'm sure you've technically won it every year since.
No, I think I won it once. And other little awards I won on the way. I think my philosophy in life has always been that people are, first of all, are an asset. Now, I work with lots of clients over the years, as you are and you're doing. And, you know, to me, it's all about those people in a business. They are an asset to you and they are really important to you. You can't do it on your own. You can do it on your own, I can do it on my own. So it's about looking after them. It's about nurturing them. It's about supporting them. And when I used to make, or when I was going to have a decision to make with all the different companies I've worked in, my management team, I used to bring them to a meeting and discuss the sort of things I'm going to do. But I never used to tell them I'm going to do it. I used to let them input into my thoughts. So first of all, I'm consulting with them about what I'm going to be doing and what I'd like to do. I'm asking them for their input, so they're feeling part of this process that I'm going to make a decision on whatever. And they feel that they've been communicated to and with, and they feel part of this team. I've seen companies where bosses just say, we're doing that. And to me, that is wrong. Because if you want people to be bought into something, and you know this as well as I do, that you've got to consult with them, make them feel part of a team, make them feel wanted, make them feel, that their thoughts and views are just as important as yours and mine, So that's what I used to do. And people like that because they feel a sense of involvement. They feel a sense of being respected and thought of. They feel a sense of Barrie thinks that, we've got something to offer here.
Yes.
It's not just a one-way, Barrie says that we're doing this and this and this. So I used to do that, and I used to get a lot of stuff out of those people, not just managers. I mean, I used to talk to the staff as well. And when we was going to build a new stadium whilst I was there, a lot of consultation went on in what do we need. We had a shopping list of what does the stadium need to have. So all the different departments gave me a shopping list of what they wanted and why. And did a presentation. And that was the biggest communication, consultative involvement of everybody in that club. Right down to the cleaners, from top to bottom, and to the security people, to all the different departments we had. And I'll tell you a little story. When I went to work at Bradford for a year, the chairman there was a nice chap, Geoffrey Richmond. He built a new £9-10 million stand. This is when I'd left Leicester and I left Portsmouth. And he invited me up because he wanted me to go and look at it. And I went around this stand and I walked around and looked at it and I thought, well, that's not going to work because that's in the wrong place. And I went and I had this 10-box tour, as I called it, and I went right everywhere. And I said to the chairman at the end of the session, I said, well, interesting, Jeff. I said, can I ask you a question? He said, yes, Barrie, what? I said, who designed this? And who did it? Was it with the architects? He said, why? I said, well, it's a right pig's ear. I said, it's not going to work. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, the catering's over there, and the stock room's over there, and that's over there, and that's... And I said, there's no coordination. It's going to be a lot of moving things around, taking them all over the place to get to where they need to go to. I said, it's a right mess. He goes, I did. I said to him, oh, sorry. I said, but did you not consult anybody? He said, no.
Right.
No. Now, to me, I've just told you a story what I did for the new stadium that, well, it wasn't the one I was going to build. It was a different one you've got now. But to what he's done, and again, it's a case of, does one person know it all? No, they don't. And I'm still learning at my tender age.
Yeah.
My young tender age, I'm still learning. And I'm still learning from other people. And you can learn so much by talking to people.
Absolutely.
Involving them. And the best way to get things out of people is to make them feel part of your operation, your company, your business. Consult with them regularly, ask them for ideas, listen to their ideas. Not everything you're going to take on board,
Of course.
because you can't.
Yeah.
But that's how you gain people's trust, respect, and that's how you gain their commitment and dedication to your business.
I like that.
That's what I did.
No, definitely.
I'm still doing it today.
Good, and so we all should. I mean, look, I guess the final question, now, this is a question we ask everyone, and I did prepare you for this, so it'll be interesting to see what you come up with. But if you could go back as yourself now to a younger Barrie, it's very hard to think as to what point in your career, but when you're sort of starting out in business, what piece of advice would you give to your younger self?
Well, the thing that I think is important is when I worked at the Chamber of Commerce, I gained so much knowledge from these business people that I met earlier on. Now, if anybody's thinking about going into a business or setting a business up, do your research. Like you keep talking about, research is big in my thoughts and everything you do. Talk to your other people running other businesses and find out what issues they had setting up their business. Find out things that worked that didn't work. Find out things that they can cut corners and get to the answer without going all around the houses, because people do. And I went to one company once where the guy spent thousands and thousands of pounds on something and he didn't need to bother spending a penny, because to get where he wanted to get was crossing the road, in my view. But he spent all this money and it was a waste of money.
Yeah.
So it's all about talking to other businesses that you know. It's all about networking, and you're a big network, and I used to be in my time, and talking to the people and getting all the cherry bits out of them, the good bits, and leaving all the other stuff up, to one side, and then compile all that, and then set a plan about how you're going to do it. Now, my first business was my petrol stations at 21. I mean, you didn't have a business plan in those days, you just did it, and people used to come in there. But when I started, when I took on Gate and Graham, the agency that was in Leicester, that hadn't got a business plan, and we had to create one. We set our stall out, because it did this, the agency, and we wanted it to do all that. We wanted to do a lot more than what they were offering at the time. So we put a business plan together, and we researched the marketplace, we researched what the customers we've got, and we put a business plan together of how we're going to grow that business. And we took it from about 1 or 2 million to about 4, I think, 5, in a very short space of time. And that's what you need to do. And I think, I help people now in business who set up or been going a year or two, to look at things from an outsider's point of view.
Yes.
You know as well as I do, you can get wrapped up in everything so closely, because you can't see the wood for the trees sometimes, especially if you're trying to run before you can walk. Mm-hmm. And that's another issue. You can walk too quick and run too quick, and then you can fall over. And you can then, have a problem because you're training too much. So, thoroughly do your research and fact-finding.
No, love that. Well, look, I'd love to sit here and talk all day, but Ria, bless her, behind the camera, looks like she needs to sit down. And I'm sure at some stage you've got to shoot. I know you've got to shoot off very soon as well, actually. But Barrie, if people would like to learn a little bit more about you and get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that? Is that through the BP Business and Management website? Is that the best?
The best they can ring me on my mobile, which is 07720 406 806, or they can ring me at Barrie, BARRIE, or email me at bpmms.co.uk, or they could even come to you, Rob, and you'll come about in the right direction.
I'll pass those details on as well. And the thing you forgot, I should say, is if you're looking back at your younger self, the number one thing anyone starting out business should do, buy a copy of your book.
Good idea.
And one of mine as well. That'd be fantastic. But Barrie, thank you so much for joining me today. Pleasure having you. Thank you very much. And thank you to you for viewing this episode. It's been great to have Barrie on. I'm sure there's lots we can digest and take away from that. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. We've got great more guests coming up over the coming weeks. drop a like, and why not drop a comment below? I tell you what, if you'd leave me a really great comment, I might even send you a copy of Barry's book for free, courtesy of Barrie. Thanks so much for watching, and until next time, all the best.